All right, everyone, welcome to your final element. This is format. Now, this is going to be a lot different than the other ones, and to be honest, it was a bit of a challenge for me to sort of put together for you. Format is something that you're going to be working with throughout the entire semester, and format really deals with the shape of the medium that you're going to be working within. And so every project will basically have its own size, and because of that, each project and each size comes with its own challenges. Sometimes you have too much information and you've got to figure out how to scale it back. And sometimes you have too little information. And so knowing how to get what you have to fit in the size container that you do, that's really one of the big challenges for a graphic designer. So this is something you're going to be working with throughout the entire semester, and I didn't want to overload you here with this, but I just kind of sort of wanted to prep your brain just a little bit. So keep this in mind. I've gone through and I've already given you, here's probably the best ways to create that. And this is what I'm kind of push you towards. Recreate these different ads using the same elements of the ad up here inside the left. Okay, and then as you get to your projects later on, you'll be able to get creative on your own. But for this particular case, just try to do your best to recreate what you see using the elements that are here. And in some cases, you're going to have to create a new element. For example, the gray box in the background here and the black box there. But you should be able to do all of these successfully based on what you've learned so far. So, and again, I'm here to walk you through it. So let's kind of get started. So if we go to our page, and I'm going to zoom in here, and let's start with our, let's start with the small one underneath it. Now, keep in mind, this does not have to be exact the way that I've already done it. It's to simply show you how to work with these elements, again, in different sized mediums. So I'm going to go to my selection tool. And the first thing I want you to understand when you're working with things like this is if I were to select the format as an elements headline, notice it's basically a bunch of grouped items. In fact, let me go to view. Let's go down our screen mode back to normal. And you can see I have all these text boxes. Well, these items are already all grouped together because it just makes it easier that if I needed to move it up or down, that I move them all as one entire group as opposed to individually. So whenever you're working with a grouped object and you need to move it or scale it or whatever else, let's go and select it, do edit, copy, and we can do edit paste. Give us a copy of it. And I'm going to scroll down here. And I'm just going to click and drag this grouped object down below. Now, this is what I want you to really kind of pull from this, is anytime you're working with a grouped element, you need to learn how to scale it. So in this particular case, especially with text boxes, you can't just click and drag because watch what happens. Because you've affected the individual text boxes, all of our text disappears. So I'm going to Control Z to undo that. If you're working with text and group text boxes and you need to scale it, hold down Control, Shift, and then click and drag. So again, you need to hold down Control, Shift first, then click and drag. If you do it the opposite, here's what's going to happen. If I click first, then hold Control and Shift, not what you want. So undo. So on your keyboard, Control, Shift, hold them both down, and then click and drag by one of the corners. And that will allow you to scale. And so we're just going to basically rescale this, holding down Control Shift to a smaller size. I'm going to take my paragraph right here, copy, paste it, bring it down, and I'm just going to resize it. Now notice that right now the text is too big for this particular space. So if I were to move this, the bottom of this text box up, notice I get that, hey, your text is too big. That's okay. We're going to come over here to our properties panel. Come down to our character. And again, I think on the sheet I said the lowest that you can go is 10. So let's do that as 10. Makes it a little bit smaller. And what we can do at this point is we can adjust the leading. So let's make this a little bit smaller. Let's go to 14. There you go. Now all the text fits within inside that text box. And again, we still sort of kept that 4 to 8 point range. So 10 points, 14 points for the leading. And we can bring that down. Now I'm not going to lie, this is one of the great things I love about graphic design and working with layout. every individual shape or every individual format brings its own challenges, and it's kind of like working with the puzzle with different, with these different pieces. Or if you're ever familiar with a tangram, it's kind of like you're sort of working with these individual pieces to create a unique shape or to fill in a unique shape. So it's kind of fun. And finally, we just need to get the phone number into the space. So I'm going to select the call now. I'm going to copy, paste it. And again, because I'm scaling text, I'm going to hold down the Control Shift and then scale it. Control Shift. And just so I can kind of see it at the moment, let's make that text black. So I come over to my swatches, select the text, select the fill. Let's just select black at the moment. That seems to be a pretty good size. Then I can select the box back here, copy it, paste, and I'm going to drop it behind the call now. So I'm going to resize it. Right click it, arrange, send to the back. And I'm going to change my text to be white. So I'm going to click on the text box in front of it now to deselect. Click on the text box, make my text white. Now I can see a little bit better, and I can resize my text box to fit inside the black box. Oops. And I can select both items by clicking and dragging a marquee. And if I want to just move this inside just a little bit so it's off the edge, I can use my arrow keys. I can bring it down if I want to, or put it right in the middle. So let's make this a little bit smaller, Control Shift. Again, this is going to be one where I'm not going to hold you to specifics that needs to be a certain size or whatever else. Basically, I just want you to do your best to try to recreate what you see there, okay? Again, this is really just going to be practice with scaling elements, and because, again, this is going to be something that you need to know how to do whenever you're working in different formats. Okay. So finally, let me just drag this out so it's the same width as the box right there. Okay. All right, so if we go to our preview, what does that look like? Screen mode, preview. That looks all right. I want to bring this in just a little bit more. Again, let's see if that lines up. Yeah. And what happens if we bring that down? You can also see how anal I'm going to be whenever I do my own work when I'm working with this. I want to make that bigger. Basically, I made the black box about as big as the actual formatted element box right there. Doesn't look too bad. Okay. All right, so that's one way. Let's hold this. All right, so let's work with this other one right here. So this one's a little bit easier to work with because it's close to the same size as this. So let's copy our header up top, copy. I'm pressing Control C, and then I'm going to press Control V on the keyboard to paste. Notice it's a bit wider than our actual box right here. So to scale, again, because it's text boxes, I'm going to press Control, Shift first, and then drag it in to make it a little bit smaller so it fits within inside that box. Okay, and I can go a little bit bigger here. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift and scale it out just a tad more. Okay, works for me. I'm going to select the text over here. The text box, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And I'm going to resize it inside here to fit. But notice with this particular format, the text is not nearly enough to fill in this space. And I can't tell you how many times a client has done this to me. So in this particular case, we're going to raise the size of our font. And so for this, what did I put inside the student guide? Let me see. Student guide. Nothing larger than 16 point. Perfect. All right, I'll move that over here to the side. So again, because we're going to select the entire text, I'm just going to grab it and change it to be 16 points, properties. Come down to my character, 16. And that seems to fill in the space pretty good. However, I do want to increase this. Because we increased the size of our font, let's definitely increase the leading. And remember, we've always talked about 4 to 8 points higher than what we currently have listed. So let's take a look to see what 4 does. That'll be 20 points. Not bad, but let's go a little bit higher because again, we have quite a bit of space to fill out. So we said 4 to 8. Let's do 6. Let's do 22. Needs a little bit more. Let's try, let's see, 8, so that's 24. Let's try that. But notice we still have a lot of empty space here. So one of the things that we can do to help fill in areas is to use an actual shape. So I'm going to go back on the left in my toolbar, select the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to draw a shape to sit inside of here, to sit in the background. And because I didn't check anything, it has a stroke but no fill. So go to my swatches, let's fix that. I'm going to basically switch these. I'm going to do a swap. And because I want it to be very light, I'm going to go ahead and choose a, let's do 20%. Very good. I'm going to come over here to my selection tool, right click the shape, and I'm going to choose Arrange, Send to the Back. So the nice thing is now I can try to get the text to sort of fit inside the shape. And so you'll notice whenever I do that, notice how the shape or the text begins to resize. So it's now taking up a little bit more space. Let me click and drag this down. And so again, that becomes sort of a nice feature for you to be able to work with. And again, that shape looks both pleasant and helps take up some of that empty white space. Finally, let's bring over the phone number. So I'm going to copy both of these elements. I'm just going to draw a marquee around them. Control copy and control paste. Bring those down here. So we can see how we need to resize them. All right, so in this particular case, it's getting a little bit crowded, so I can actually select this gray box. If I wanted to, I can move it up just a bit, and then basically just bring in the left side of these boxes. Okay, and it can be as simple as that. And if I want to put a little bit more emphasis on the call now, again, to fill up a little bit of that white space above it, I can double click it, come over to my properties, and adjust the size of that to be, let's say it's at 24. Let's try 28. Let's see what happens there. It's a little bit big, and unfortunately it means that our text is now bigger than the actual text box, so I'm going to pull that down. Okay, I'm just going to bump it up. And that actually looks okay. I'm going to resize it so the width is about as wide as the actual black box. So not exactly like what we did inside the one that I gave you, but close enough. Okay. All right, so that looks decent. And again, same elements, but notice how we had to take those same elements and then fill up this particular space. That is where the beauty of things like shape or even line can come in to really help you fill in those extra gaps. All right, so that looks good. Let's come down to our big one down here. Now this is a bigger challenge because we have so much space and we have very little text to put into it. So let's start with our element. I'm going to copy it, bring it down here to the bottom. Now in this particular case, what I did is, I tried to, if you take a look at the what we were shooting for, is it just made a little bit more sense to sort of separate the, I want to say, we'll call it the logo or the headline, to sort of be its own side of the ad. And again, because it's white on black, that is the highest amount of contrast that you can get. So if you were to see this inside of a newspaper, your eye would be immediately drawn to this particular shape because it just stands out. That dark color with the white text. So this is a good solution for this particular ad. So let's go ahead and recreate that. So in that particular case, let's see, we've got this. Let's go ahead and bring in our background. And add a shape, and I'm going to make sure it's the same. Basically what I'm doing now to draw this shape is I'm starting in this corner where our other shape begins. I'm going to click and drag one out to about roughly the halfway through the ad. Okay, and you notice those green lines that are showing up, that's the smart guides. And so it's telling me that the right line right there, that right green line, it's matching up with the object above it, which is fine. So I'm going to pull this down until it matches the bottom and let go. All right, now before we switch the stroke to the fill, let's go ahead and change the color of this element so it'll be a little bit easier for us to see in just a moment. So we're going to select this and we're going to double click inside of it. come to my swatches. For now, let's just do 30%. Same thing, select element, make it 30%. And you'll see why in just a second. Select as and, make it 30%. Go to my selection tool and grab those individual lines because we also need to change the colors of these. Click off to the side to deselect, and then basically keep double clicking down till you get to the element that you need. And go to my stroke, we'll make that 30%. And again, I'm going to double click here, or I'm just going to click on that, I guess because we're already inside the group, and make that 30%. Now, come back here to your shape. With it selected, make it completely black. And so I'm going to switch from my stroke to my fill. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to send it to the back. Get that, bring that down just a little bit. Arrange, send to back. So now we can actually see the elements. Now in this particular case, they're gray. Let's go ahead and make them white. So again, double click Format as Element. Then select inside the box. Change your text to white. Select Format. Change it to white. Select as and, if we can get there. Nope. All right, let's deselect and then, it's going to make it a little bit difficult. Okay, but just again, we double click it till we get to it. And we're going to select that, make that paper. And finally, we got those lines down here at the bottom. So let's select each line, paper, line, and paper. Very good. And finally, what we have here is we just need to bring over the text and the phone number. And I would probably tell you, because of this particular space, let's just bring this information down. So I'm going to select this box, or this paragraph box. I'm going to hold down the Alt key to create a duplicate, and click. I'm going to drag it down. I'm also going to hold down the Shift key just to kind of keep it straight for just a moment. All right, then I'm going to resize the width of this box so it takes up a little bit more space. Okay, which looks good. And if I want to tighten up that lighting, I could. There's plenty of room to do that, but I think it'll be fine right now. Let's bring that over. All right, then let's grab our phone number, our call now. Again, the problem is our text box is a little bit large, so I can't quite get to the box behind it. So with it like this, I'm going to double click the bottom of this box. That's going to tighten it up. Now I can get access to the actual black box behind it. Hold down the Shift key to copy both. Edit copy. Edit paste. And just bring it down. And then I can adjust the width of the black box. Sort of match my text. Again, notice those green lines. It's basically, that's your smart guides at work. It's snapping to the right edge of the paragraph, which is great. And same thing with the left. That doesn't quite look centered there, so let's make these the same width. Oops. Oh, see how big that text box is? So it makes it difficult to select things around it. So I'm going to double click that point down here at the bottom to minimize it. Now I can select these a little bit more easier. A little bit more easy. All right, then I'm just going to sort of move that a couple places using my arrow key so it looks somewhat centered. And there you go. So basically we took those same elements up here in the left-hand corner and we simply reapply them to different sizes throughout this page. Some can be a little bit more challenging, some take a little bit of creativity, but this is what using Format is all about. So give it your best shot. Again, it doesn't have to look exactly like the one that I gave you, but again, feel free to use that as a model and try to replicate as best you can. I'm not looking for perfection in this particular one. All I'm looking for is that you were able to successfully scale down elements or to fill in the space as best possible without going too grotesque with the size of things. But anyway, best of luck, and if you have any questions, reach out.